Hello and welcome to the 12th dimension with me, Deborah, who's muted again, joined with Dan, Baldwin and George Sewell.
I'm not muted now.
So some of you guys, regulars, will know Dan from last time he came on, and George, who both do a lot of work together. So welcome, both of you.
Hey, glad to be here.
And welcome to the hats as well.
Yes, we like a hat.
Well, yeah, I'm in Arizona, so out here this isn't fashion; it's survival gear.
So whereabouts are you, George?
Just part of the paranormal costume.
Cool.
Yeah, George is he's in Northwest Louisiana, and I'm out in Arizona, so we're about 1,200 miles apart.
Wow.
Yeah, Louisiana's on the Gulf of Mexico.
Yes. Yeah.
Psychically, we're very close, however.
Yeah, it looks close on a map.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, at least far away.
Yeah, just really close.
So yeah, thanks for coming on.
Delighted.
Really appreciate it.
Yes.
So where do you want to start? George, do you want to introduce yourself? Tell us what you do.
Well, what I do now is pretty much whatever I want to do. Fortunately, I'm in that age of life.
Yes.
I've always had an interest in the paranormal in general, astronomy, outer space, travel, those type things since day one. So that's just been a lifelong interest and pursuit. And in the late 1980s and early 1990s, I was affiliated with the Mutual UFO Network, and I was the assistant state director in Louisiana for MUFON. And that gave me an opportunity to come in contact with a number of people in Northwest Louisiana who had had some form of encounter, either paranormal or most often it was with a flying saucer, so to speak, or some other extraterrestrial event. And Dan at the time was living in Shreveport, and very often I would go out and interview these people. And what I quickly found out is they weren't looking for really an explanation of what they saw or what they experienced. They were mainly interested in a confidential ear to tell the story, just to kind of get it off their chest.
Yeah.
And with my background as a counselor, I was a natural fit for it. So I got to hear a number of people who just wanted to get it off their chest. And Dan was present for many of these interviews. And we kind of made notes and we corroborated what was presented. So we were both hearing pretty much the same thing. And something that struck me, and I kind of tucked it away at the time, was the number of people who felt that the encounter was personal, that somehow in some way it was meant for them. And
Right.
in the course of our investigations for the Paranormal Pendulum Book 3, there was an instance that happened that I was able to understand why they were saying that. That was those were the head of years when I had more direct contact with experiencers, so to speak. And the last 5 years, I'm kind of back in the arena and was assisting Dan with some of his paranormal pendulum books on researching haunted buildings in Shreveport and Bossier City, Louisiana, that have a history of a presence. And we would make arrangements to go into the building, and Dan with his pendulum dowsing as the communication device. And we were able to communicate with a number of the spirits in various locations and got some very interesting stories.
Yeah.
And they're included in Dan's 2 books on the paranormal pendulum. But I was impressed with Dan's use of the pendulum as a communication device, not only for the dearly departed, but I was wondering if it could be used to communicate with, say, non-humans or other non-corporal beings. And sure enough, an opportunity presented itself for that. Well, I guess we'll just go on into it, Dan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
on my part, I practice a technique called pendulum dowsing, which is merely a rock on a string. It's a way to connect with, allow your subconscious to connect with a higher power. And basically you ask a question, you get a yes or a no.
Yeah.
And I was involved for almost 20 years looking for missing persons using that technique, which led to a couple of years investigating some friends of mine who are psychic mediums. And I got together and we said, pretty much on a lark was, I'm pretty good at this dowsing thing and you guys are really good mediums. What if we combined our efforts and try to make contact with the spirit world? And so again, pretty much on a lark, we tried that and, by golly, it worked. And we were able to pretty much extend the conversations with the spirits on the other side. One of the benefits of pendulum dowsing in spirit contact is you can have extended conversations. You're not hoping for like a rap on the wall, or maybe you can get a 1 or 2 word EVP. In our work, George and I have had conversations lasting up to 20 minutes with people on the other side. And so I wrote a couple of books with my friends on that about historical places in Arizona.
Yeah.
And that led into I decided I could write a couple of books on how to use pendulum dowsing to communicate with spirits. And that was Paranormal Pendulum 1. George was essential in helping research that. And after I finished that, it just hit me. I've got all this wealth of information about what it's like on the other side, what the crossover is like, what you can expect, is reincarnation real? Do you meet people on the other side that that sort of thing? What are orbs?
Yeah.
So I put all that together in a book. It's basically what it's like on the other side. That was Paranormal Pendulum 2. And then one day George calls up out of the blue and says, I need your pendulum over here. We've got an abduction case. And, well, it's only 1,250 miles. Jump in the car, boom. It's not, except for the Texas part, it's not a bad drive,
Right.
But got to George's place, and he had contact, and he can give you the details. But a young woman named Lindsay Higgins had been abducted, and so we spent about 2 years researching that case, and that which led to the current book, which is the Paranormal Pendulum 3, which is kind of what we're talking about today. So that's how I got from there to here.
Yeah.
Cool.
Wow.
So can I just ask, how did you guys originally meet?
Well, see, I think Lee surrendered to Gramp at Appomattox, and it was a long time ago. I think 1975.
Wow.
we got together. George was forming a local organization called the Scotch and Cinema Society, which was people who like to watch old and classic movies and drink scotch while they did that.
Yeah.
And George and I both worked for an alternative newspaper at the time as columnists and feature writers. And the editor put us two together, and I helped him form his society, and we've been stuck to each other ever since.
Oh,
Wow.
that's a long time. That's lovely.
Yeah.
He can't shake me, or I can't shake him. It's one or the other. I mean,
Connected
But
by
in
a
our work, we have
pendulum.
a great deal of mischief.
Yeah.
mischief is the key word.
So
Yeah, that's how we got from there to here.
cool. So can you tell us about any projects you've got coming up other than the book?
Yeah, George, you take that one, and I'll wrap up.
Well, the current project, in the course of the extended investigation into Lindsay Higgins' abduction situation and a whole lot more, and then we can get into just how broad that arena turned out to be.
Yeah.
But in one of the sessions, it was learned that 4,000 years ago, Lindsay was incarnated at a World Heritage Site in Northeast Louisiana known as Poverty Point. It's a very ancient village, if you will, of the ancient mound builder culture, which means there's a huge bird mound there. And according to the information we were getting via the pendulum, Lindsay was there earlier incarnation, male, studying under the shaman at Poverty Point. And one of the things the shaman did was he was the intermediary with the village to the sky people. And basically these were people who came from the sky in some sort of craft from time to time. And there was exchanges of ideas and whatnot, but it was limited. Their sky people's contact was limited to Jock Poe and his assistants, and that would have been Lindsay. So that kind of got us thinking that Dan's had lots of stories out in the western part of the country, very similar to the ancient peoples having contact and interaction with the sky people. So we're just heading in that direction as to get a feel for who were the sky people, what was going on, and we'll just kind of see where it goes from there.
Yeah, what's going to be really interesting about that is that George is studying one culture, the Eastern mound builders primarily, and the cultures that led up to that. And out here in Arizona, I'm studying a significantly different culture at a different time, different location, different time frame altogether. And we're kind of comparing, they both had contact with the sky people, and we're kind of comparing notes, culture to culture, area to area, time to time. And we're coming up with a lot of amazing similarities. It's not that different.
Right.
Yeah, and again, we're in the earliest stages of research, but so far it's becoming rather fascinating.
Yeah, we're
So
still
you-
putting together the
You
research.
find it, so you're kind of finding the same sort of stuff in each place.
Pretty much.
Mm.
In other words, both cultures, or both sets of cultures, I should say, had contact. At least what we've learned so far, they've had contact with the sky people. The interesting thing that I've come up with so far is that, and George has come up with the same thing, is they weren't considered gods. They were considered friendly visitors.
Right.
And they came on not a scheduled time frame, but they came on a regular basis, and they engaged in trade. And a little investigation into that and what they traded each other was ideas and concepts.
Right.
Different ideas about religion, the nature of the universe, and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But the contact was, again, not scheduled, but it was regular, and it was kind of an accepted part of society.
Yeah. So they'd just like turn up unannounced, I suppose.
We asked about that. There were 3 sites in the Shreveport area.
Yeah.
That Dan and I have identified that were very active up to 6,000 years ago. Okay, with very ancient peoples. and that these sites did have visitations with the sky people.
Yeah.
And recently, in a session at one of these sites when Dan was in town, we conversed with one of those individuals, and it was interesting that he did not give any impression that the visitors were terrifying, or I mean they looked a little different from humans, but not such that they were uncomfortable in their presence.
Yeah.
And I was interested in his personal impression of the sky people, and surprisingly, it turned out that he was intimidated by them.
Ooh.
And he was intimidated because they knew so much. And I thought that was interesting.
Right.
Yep. But again, the consistent thing so far, I had to preface everything with the word "so far."
Yeah.
But they weren't considered gods. They weren't afraid. The average people may have been intimidated, but sometimes definitely the shamans and sometimes the chiefs were the ones who made the actual contact with the sky people. And actually, some of them went up for a trip.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh. Very interesting, especially with.
No, just stay tuned. We don't know where this is going, but we'll be calling you sometime next year. Maybe we'll know.
That's fine. Yeah, just give us a shout.
Yeah.
If you have time off work, I'll jump from
And
a
it
plane.
may still be.
I'll come and have first-hand look.
Yeah.
We're getting to see a lot of beautiful country, if nothing else.
Well,
Yeah.
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll settle for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have a question.
Oh.
Wait a minute. This is from Rick Allen. Have the guys ever connected with a cryptid spirit?
Not to my knowledge.
No.
Not knowingly.
No.
No. Well, maybe that's to come.
Yeah. Because
You
you're at
never
so
know.
Well,
far.
let me clarify here that our use of the pendulum in communications is specific to a project. We're not doing this for entertainment. Let's see who shows up, or let's see if we can find so and so. It's purposed. It's purpose, and we got very disciplined in that with the research on the Lindsay Higgins abduction case. So we did not communicate with a broad range necessarily of spirits or extraterrestrials or other type, but those that had specific dealings with that particular case who could advance information about what was truly going on with Lindsay and her lifelong history of paranormal events.
So
basically, you've got a target then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the way we
Correct.
approach it, and our sessions are not like a seance, or we don't sit around and ask would Julius Caesar show up, or would Abraham Lincoln show up, or would Winston Churchill show up. We just sit down and kind of center ourselves and basically ask if there's anyone who has some information that is valuable to us, would you please show up?
Yeah.
Right.
And we don't ask for specific individuals and individual persons. And so far, somebody's always showed up, and they've always provided valuable and sometimes startling information.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these ones that showed up. Sorry, George, go on.
I was going to say, specifically in Lindsay's case, we had a great deal of information coming from her favorite aunt, who lived next door to where she grew up. So her aunt brought a lot of information from her perspective about what was happening with Lindsay. Lindsay had a maternal uncle who was very active in the communication process because he was in the Air Force at the time, and he knew of things in the area that helped explain some of the things that Lindsay saw as well as experienced. So there was a lot of communication with her family, if you will, now deceased. But what was really interesting was in the process of that story, Dan and I were led to a previous family in Shreveport, Louisiana, basically late 19th century. They passed on in the early 20th century. And that family, W.D. Woodworth and his two daughters, they're back on Earth now. as Lindsay, Lindsay's father, and Lindsay's sister. And we had a remarkable session with the pendulum and Lindsay, where Lindsay had an opportunity to speak with the spirit of her previous incarnation. So we've got the pendulum and we're communicating directly with Lindsay in the physical. And at the same time, Lindsay's having conversation with her previous incarnation in the spirit realm. So the pendulum is a marvelous communication device. And we learned a lot of things.
So,
yeah.
So Lindsay in present form is communicating with Lindsay in a past form.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
One of the things we learned is the term spirit or soul is capable of multitasking.
Right.
Significantly.
The term spirit is a lot broader than most of us think of it.
Yeah.
It's not isolated in one body.
And the line of questioning that Lindsay wanted to pursue was, as Lindsay became more aware of more detailed information about why she seemed to be targeted for multiple experiences. I don't like the word abductions, but associations. And she wanted to know if, as the previous incarnation, Sally Murph Woodworth, did Sally Murph, when she was alive in the physical, have these same experiences? And yes, she did. So Lindsay's experience by means of this kind of communication, we learned, just transcends centuries. It's a very long-term association.
Right.
Yeah, one of the things that really surprised me, when George brought me into this particular case, I thought we were going to handle another typical, this is a fascinating, typical abduction case. And in some respects it was, but the more we got into it, it's incredibly complex, because we started getting involved with the concept of reincarnation, the spirit world contact with the, lack of a better term, the ETs.
Yeah.
And it all mixed up with me, George, and Lindsay and her family. It's just incredibly complex.
Yeah.
So do you find that
and all connected?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Do you find that there's a big connection between everything that you've got going on? I'm going
to lead George into a little story.
Right.
I'm going to intro George on something. We discovered, speaking specifically of spirit connection with the UFOs, we were directed specifically by a specific spirit into this investigation. There's a chapter in the Paranormal Pendulum 3 called The Stage Manager that explains how a spirit from the other side basically was the puppet master that put all this thing together. And I'll let George is a little bit closer to that. So I'll let him carry on from there.
First off, let me just let everyone know that anybody who subscribes to Netflix, okay, Netflix told the Lindsay story in a series called Haunted.
Right.
And in season 1, episode 5, that's the Lindsay Higgins story, highlighting a particular abduction event when she was a sophomore in college, and that's where they got their big money shot in the recreation, where she's pulled across her room and she grabs a hold of a ceiling fan to prevent from going out through the dissolving wall. And that was a true event, and it's pretty well depicted, according to Lindsay, in the Netflix series. But backing up just a bit.
Stage manager.
Yeah. While we were doing the investigations, part of my usual daily routine would be I'm an early riser. I'm a morning person, so I usually get up and take a morning stroll down to a local park. It's a mile from my house, and then I'll walk around the park. That's another mile, then a mile back to the house. So it's a nice, 45-minute, hour stroll.
Yeah.
And one particularly frosty morning on the stroll, the baseball field was really heavily frosted. It was just really glistening in the dawn sun. So I took a got my iPhone, took a picture of it, and looked kind of nice. So I posted it on Facebook as a scene on this morning stroll picture, and soon started getting a lot of feedback from people. Boy, yeah, that's a good little picture, George, but what's with the blue tennis ball? What? So I went back and looked at the picture, and I had overlooked it, but sure enough, hovering above the baseball field is a dark blue sphere or orb. And I said,
Right.
whoa, okay. Well, I kind of wrote that off as a lens flare because, again, the sun was up, and I could explain it, I guess.
Yeah.
But I made it a point, or I should say something was kind of whispering in my ear. The next time I did the same morning walk, came to the same point and said, wait a minute, let me recreate that picture.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing anything unusual. And so I recreate that picture, and sure enough, there's an orb in it. Whoa, okay. That's curious. A few more times, click, click, orb. Okay, wait a minute. This is there's something going on here. So I send the pictures out to Dan. I say, Dan, take your magic pendulum, see if you can make some sense of what this is. And Dan did his thing. And what he replied was, the orb is a spirit. It's a spirit known to you, but not in this lifetime.
Right.
Okay. I really don't have much background information on my previous incarnation. So I was, okay, well, how do I identify this person? Then I kind of have the thought, let's look at 19th century American actresses. So I get on the internet and start looking through 19th century American actresses, and one actress keeps popping up.
Yeah.
And that's Kate Bateman.
Right.
And I subscribe to newspapers.com, so I got very specific newspaper searches for actress Kate Bateman. And she was just all over the place. She was born in, I think, 1842 in Baltimore, Maryland, in the United States. She's born into a theatrical family. They were very, very prominent. They performed all over the United States. In 1865, I think, she married an Englishman, George Crowe. And then they moved back to London, and she was a very premier actress on the London theater for much of the late 19th century. So, okay, Dan, take your pendulum. Is Kate Bateman the spirit that I once knew in some form or fashion? And he got a big, robust yes. And so, okay, I mean, Kate went to a lot of trouble to get my attention, and that would be the way to do it. Just because I never saw the orbs, and I still don't see them, but the camera does.
Yeah.
A member of our team for that project is a very, very skilled medium, evidential medium, Colleen Laborde in Shreveport. And so, Colleen, I need to book a session with you. I need your impressions of someone on the other side who I think is working with us in this investigation. And we had that session, and Kate presented herself loud and clear to Colleen. Yeah. And Colleen was able to reaffirm, whoa, yes, indeed. This is a very skilled, very evolved spirit. Yes, y'all knew each other in that lifetime. And she had some information that Kate kind of wanted to guide us with in the book. But it was confirmation that, okay, we do indeed have the spirit of actress Kate Bateman as part of the of this investigative team. And as we later learned, Kate put the idea into Lindsay that you've had over 40 some odd years of these experiences. There's nobody you can really talk to about them. You've been sitting on them all these decades. It's hurting you. Now's the time to come out. Just come out with it. And that's when Lindsay made the decision to listen to a certain podcast that made an announcement about a certain Los Angeles production company that was looking for stories of people who have a lifetime of paranormal events. Yeah. And Lindsay decided, well, that's how I'm going to do it. So she wrote up her story, sent it out to the production company. They got back with her in 12 hours to set up a formal interview, had the interview, and they said, okay, we're going to do your story. And then they asked Lindsay, do you know anybody else in the Shreveport, Bossier City area who has similar stories or who knows about these types of encounters? And she asked a friend of hers that question, and the friend was someone who knew me, and she said, well, you need to call George. Call George Sewell. He knows some stuff about this. And that's where I got an out of the blue call from Lindsay one night, and just got the whole 2 hours of her remarkable experiences. And again, that was prompted by Kate. And I think Kate probably kind of gave me a little, hey, George, you're paying attention to Dan's pendulum there. You're not aware of any investigation into anything regarding extraterrestrials or any of these associations with that kind of device.
Yeah.
That may be the tool to use primarily in learning what's going on with Lindsay. So that's when I brought Dan in, and it revved up and off to the races.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me toss in here. We back checked ourselves all the time. This was like a 2-year investigation. So oftentimes George and I would do our work on our own, and then we would do work together. But sometimes, we wanted to make sure that we're getting accurate information. And for a good example, several times we would be working with one of our mediums, or more than one of our mediums. And George and I would work our pendulums. We would sit back to back.
Yeah.
So that I can't see his pendulum moving. He can't see my pendulum moving. We have the medium that was with us would sit facing away from both of us, so that neither of us could read her body language. She couldn't read our pendulum motion. So that and then someone else would ask the questions, and consistently, the three of us would come up with the same answer over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, that's
so we're very confident. Plus, in addition, we had the assistance of a lot of historical researchers in the area.
Yeah,
particularly one of the local museums, and we would come up with information that neither George knew. I knew about, historical information, and then our researcher would come back with documentation proving what we had come up with. So, we're pretty confident of what we've come up with.
Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of accuracy.
That's a good way to do it, though, is to get all the, like you say, so you can't see each other.
Yeah, because with the pendulum, if you want to make the pendulum go yes, if you want to make it go no, you can. It's real simple. The hard part about it is keeping your mind totally clear so that you get the perfect the right example. And we just want to consistently make sure that George and I aren't creating the information that we wanted to get.
Yeah, and, right. And we had another skilled pendulum dowser with us, and very often we would have a session with him, and Dan and I would ask the questions that we previously had got with our work, and this other dowser, he doesn't know anything about that. Okay, he doesn't know anything about the questions or the information. So we ask him the questions, and he gets the yes/no response, and it lines up perfectly. So that gives it a bit of credibility that, okay, this is not something Dan and I are subliminally, putting into the arena.
Yeah.
And a friend, that's Dave McMillan is his name. His involvement, I think, is another example of Kate pulling the strings. I was in town. I've known Dave. He has a radio program. He's been in radio. I've known him since as long as I've known George, since the mid '70s.
Yeah. And
I was in town, George and I were doing our thing, and Dave said, well, my show was on tonight. Would you like to be interviewed? I said, yeah, come on. Tell me what you're doing, Dan, what's going on, blah, blah, blah. So we do the program. After the program, he says, by the way, Dan, I'm a pendulum dowser too. And, oh, yeah, my wife is a medium. You think we could get maybe involved in some of the stuff you and George are doing? Duh. But I think that was Kate again pulling a little string to put me and David together.
Right.
And so all of a sudden George and I had another two very good, very qualified members of the team, just like that.
Yeah. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Can I ask? Have you had any negative responses from using the pendulum? No, you've
never.
not. Oh no, I'm not allowed to ask.
No. No. I've been doing this. Oh God, 20 years.
Yeah.
And I have never, and George and I have never, and I have never had a negative encounter, not one. I think I'm not saying there are not negative forces out there, because there are.
Yeah.
But the difference is George and I don't go looking for them. We don't want to encounter them. We're not out there hoping to be scared, hoping to come up with a good story that'll sell a book. I don't want to deal with that part of the universe, so we don't.
No, I was just thinking, because you get like tricksters and that with people. I know it's a little bit different with Ouija boards and all that, saying that they're one thing and they're not. There's something.
No,
totally
it's not
different.
to say that we have encountered playful spirits.
Right.
Now, again,
Georgie's laughing.
Yeah.
One of our members, we're at a museum in downtown Shreveport, the Spring Street Museum, a premier museum in the area. And one of the women who was working there was guiding us around. And suddenly her hair went whoop, like that. Her hair just popped out like that.
Yeah.
Now, if you're going in and you're going, all right, this is a haunted house, it's going to be demonic, we're going to have a negative experience, it's going to be terrifying. That would be a terrifying experience.
Yeah.
Now, she was with us. We were positive. We were upbeat. We were looking forward to a positive experience. Her hair went boom. Hey, a ghost just touched my hair. Wow. That's great. That's great.
Yes.
So it's a lot of the negative stuff here is interpretation. But again, the main point is we don't encounter it because we don't go looking for it.
Yeah.
No. Thank you.
And in that particular event that Dan described, we were having a pendulum session, and the administrator, her name's Maria, also has some psychic talent. So she was aware of the presence that's legendary in that it's the oldest building surviving in Shreveport, and two brothers built it as a bank back in the mid 19th century. And there are just constant sensations from both staff as well as visitors that they often come and visit. They like that building. They like what's being done with it. And we were in communication with one of the brothers. And when Maria had that little hair moment, I asked, well, was that you? Yes. Are you playing with Maria's hair? Yes. It was a playful thing. But let me use that as a segue. Let me use that as a segue for something that just happened recently that kind of really brings this even tighter. Maria assisted us in some sessions for Dan's first two books, and she passed away very suddenly.
Oh,
just after we finished our pendulum work, and just took everybody by surprise. I mean, she's like in her mid-40s and just boom. But Dan and I were on a program similar to this not too long ago, and Dan was describing that same instance there with the hairbrush as an illustration.
Yeah.
And I had a really powerful sense of Maria when he was describing that.
Yeah.
And I said, okay. And I kept encountering the type of car she drove, which was a dark blue contemporary Volkswagen. Okay. And okay, something's going on here. Probably Kate's out there doing something as well. So I contacted Dan, said, look, Dan, I've got a hunch that Maria wants to be a part of this team again. And that's the expression he got. So it appears that Maria is going to work with us on this investigation from the other side. That's called bookends.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you can't get more into it than that, can you? Really?
No.
Really.
You just have to be open to do experiences. This thing has taken George and me and George. way beyond where we thought we would be in terms of research subjects.
Yeah.
And delightfully so. Delightfully so.
Oh yeah, absolutely delightful.
Yeah. So George, what would you say during all your time doing all this kind of stuff would be your most mind-blowing experience?
Yeah.
Other than meeting me.
Well, that as well, yeah.
Obviously.
That goes without saying.
Yeah,
Actually, let me come at that, Deb, from this direction. It's in the book, Paranormal Pendulum 3.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. When we're well into the research, and I'm really starting to notice that this thing is just really clicking. Everything and everybody's just falling into place. We've kind of picked up on the cake factor, and the skeptical George is beginning to wonder, okay, are somehow Dan and I subconsciously influencing these events? Because we were having tremendous communications with an extraterrestrial who said we could call him ET. I mean, and that was leaked information we did not expect. And so I was getting just a little concerned that maybe Dan and I might be influencing this in some way. And I'm not sure I can really trust. Well, anyway, the next morning, 7 a.m., bright and early, December 28th, 2020. It's just before dawn. I go into the living room, open up the blinds, and look out across the street. And hovering well above my neighbor's house is what I would estimate at least a 20-foot diameter orange-yellow sphere. Big sucker. Just hanging there. It's not moving. So I start studying it. I mean, there's a street light below it that's got a light pollution lamp in it. Okay, and it's putting out a similar kind of orangey yellow glow. And I noticed that the circumference of the sphere is kind of like an artist might feather a painting. You know, it's not a hard circle. It's got a little shimmer to it. Look in the background, and I can see the pre-dawn glow of the sun in the distant sky. And of course, there's a street light. And I'm just, okay, it's not going anywhere. It's just sitting there. It's in my face, so to speak, not in a negative sense, but unmistakable. So, my gosh, what do you think George did next?
Go on.
Did George step outside to look at it directly? Nah. Did George think to get his phone and get a picture of it? Nah. I went and fed the cats.
So
I got some porch cats, and okay, I go give them some food. Okay, fine. Made a cup of coffee. Walking back through the living room, look through the window, and the orb is gone. And that's when it clicked.
Yeah. Do you think, though, that they put that thought into your mind to not go outside, to not take a photo, to go and do something that's an everyday task? Then you think about it, you go back, and it's like the moment of realization kicks in.
And what they did in meditating on the whole thing that evening, obviously this threw away all of my skepticism about, hey, this is good, we're right on, they're all for it, so hey, trust the information. And they described the event or the encounter as a diplomatic reveal. And that's a really good way to describe it. And in addition, once they left and there was that something changed, a little air pressure, temperature, there was a change of my consciousness, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. And what I sensed was I was getting a demonstration of just how subtle this communication is. And often it's not even recognized. I never had the thought to go outside. And the reason was exactly.
No.
I was not to approach it. I was not to photograph it, but I could study it for as long as I wanted. That was fine, but not going to do the other. So
there's
two things there. one, yeah. Well, influence, I would say influence, not control.
Yeah.
But that I fully understood now from years ago when the people I was talking to were interpreting their experience as something very personal. Got that, gang? Okay, I know what you mean. And the very subtle nature of the communication. And now I understood why. Let's go look for 19th century American actresses. It was the same kind of subtle communication from Kate. So I'm much more aware of these subtle communications now because of that particular experience. And another one that happened a bit later that wasn't related to the book.
Oh, what's that one?
Well, okay, Dan, you might have to fill in on this one too. Our evidential medium, usually once a month on a Saturday, she'll have a good grief group in her studio. She's got a marvelous studio, seats about 24 people, and she is very, very skilled. And what she will do is just anybody who wants to come, pay a token fee just to underwrite the cost of the utilities, can sit in and she'll just go with the flow. Whoever shows up, if there's any communication that occurs, it occurs. And I was going to attend, well, I did attend. I was driving into the parking lot in front of her studio, getting ready to go inside for the session. And as I parked, I looked to my left, and there was a car, of course, next to me. But the driver, very pleasant lady, hadn't quite got out of her car yet. She kind of looked over and smiled and waved at me, and I smiled and waved back. And okay, well, she's going to the session. Well, so am I. I'll walk with her, maybe get her name or something. So I put up the sunscreen because this is back in the summer, blocking the windshield from the sun. Get out of the car, close the door, look in the car, empty. Empty. Nobody's outside. Car is empty. Go inside the studio. Studio's empty. Go back to Colleen's office. She's there. So we have a little conversation. Go back to the studio, and people are filling up. So I started thinking about this. When I got out of my car and closed the door, there was that similar something like a temperature drop or an air pressure drop, whatever was occurring that allowed me to see the lady who wasn't there ended. And that's why I saw the empty car.
That's strange.
It happens.
I can relate another. I can relate not an earth-shaking story, but one that has a little humorous twist to it regarding spirit contact. Sometimes the spirits try to help if you're willing to listen. Again, if you're open. I was up with doing some research with a friend of mine, a Georgian friend of mine in Georgia's, up in Texarkana, and we were way out in the woods, in the piney woods, at a family cemetery that had been there since the 1830s. And my friend wanted me to make contact with his grandfather about a family issue. And so I had given him a pendulum, showed him how to work it. And we were out at the cemetery. And it's in the middle of nowhere. No people around, no highways, the nearest road is a couple of miles down the dirt road that led to the cemetery. So we're alone. And my normal process is to get familiar with the scene, walk around, kind of get used to it, sit down, turn on my recorder. I like, when I do a session, I do the recording because I want a complete, accurate transcript when I write my books.
Yeah.
So it's always there, and I can keep a file forever. And then I do my pendulum work. And every once in a while, we're lucky enough to get an EVP, electronic voice phenomenon, a spirit voice. And I don't go chasing those, but every once in a while I'm lucky enough to get one and consider that another form of validation. So I'm sitting there and my friend's walking around, turn on the recorder, I'm getting ready to go. He walks up and he says, I lost my pendulum. I go, what? He said, I can't find my pendulum. I said, well, let's go look for it. Turn off the recorder. We go look for his pendulum. We can't find it. We come back to the tree, turn on the recorder, do my session. I have a successful session. We solve his problem. A week or so later, I'm back in Arizona, and I'm playing back the recording to do my transcribing. And to get to the point where he says, I lost my pendulum, and there's a male voice of someone who wasn't physically there comes in and says, it's by the truck. And I go, you lost your pendulum? It's by the truck. So neither one of us heard the voice, but it's on the recorder clear as a bell.
Yeah.
This poor spirit, probably his grandfather, trying to say, you dummy, it's over by the truck.
Yeah.
So
Open
look,
your eyes.
Here we are just knocking around. So that's not earth shattering, but that's fairly typical of the kind of thing that you run into.
Yeah.
Yeah. In
I like
fact, now in the course of the research for Paranormal Pendulum 3, Dan was back in town, and we were back at the Spring Street Museum, and we were having a pendulum session there with one of the co-founders, specifically to get information about the W.D. Woodworth family. They were contemporaries. He was familiar with the family, and I had a suspicion that maybe Lindsay was a reincarnation of W.D.'s wife, Eugenia. So I was trying to get information, physical description of Mrs. Woodworth, and in the course of that, we wrapped it up. And later at the house, Dan and I are listening to that recording just to make sure the recorder got it all. Yeah. And smack in the middle of it, in a very firm male voice, we hear, "Lindsay is key." Whoa, hello. Rewind that, Dan. So we listened to it a good half dozen times because you'd call it a Class A EVP. I mean, there's no two ways about it. Lindsay is key.
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay. Well, Dan trots off to Arizona, and a couple of weeks later, when he's doing the transcript, the EVP's not there.
Oh.
It's not there.
And believe me,
So,
I looked and listened.
Yeah.
But the rest of it was.
Everything else was there.
Yeah. And when Dan was next in town, we went to the side of the W.D. Woodworth family home. It's now city property. It's just level ground. But we did a session there, and W.D.'s quite a character. We were rather fond of W.D. And I asked him, did you put in that Lindsay is key? Yes. Did you remove it? Yes. Just kind of letting us know some of the things they can and do from the other side. Dan can recount one of the first episodes in the Pendulum 3 book is an event that occurred with Lindsay when she was about 2.5, maybe 3 years old, where her family's a restaurant family, very, very well known locally. Yeah. And at that time, her father had purchased a railroad station called Central Station. He's a big railroad guy, loves trains. And the downstairs part was the restaurant, and the family lived on the second floor as the residence. And there's a big outdoor balcony separating the two from the street. And that one particular day, nice sunny day, Lindsay's in her room, bored to tears. She can see the sun to go out to play. So more opens the window for her. Now this is a train station, okay? This is a on the floor window.
Yeah.
Double hung. Opens that window. Little Lindsay trots out to the balcony. People outside coming into the restaurant see this little toddler out on the balconies. Of course, they go inside and say, "Hey, there's a little girl on the balcony." So her parents run upstairs, bring Lindsay back into the room. Her father, Joe, closes the window. And you got to ask the obvious, who opened the window? Because there's nobody upstairs who could open that window. Lindsay just says, well, my friend Morlock opened it for me. Well, that's a moment. The window was opened. There was nobody to open it, but Lindsay says her spirit friend opened it.
Yeah.
So we addressed that in some pendulum sessions and got the identity of Lindsay's spirit friend. And yes, indeed, the spirit had the ability to physically manipulate that window. So we had demonstrations of the things they can do.
That's amazing.
So that when kids say they have a imaginary friend, they're not really that imaginary.
No, I don't think they are a lot of the
Certainly in
time.
this case, yeah.
No.
Yeah,
No,
we eventually
fairly well.
we researched the area, and we actually came up with the name of the imaginary friend. He was a railroad person by the name of Pete Couch, I believe.
Right.
And he was a friend of W.D. Woodworth. And basically, the spirit of W.D. Woodworth had asked the spirit of Pete Couch just to keep an eye on my little girl.
Right.
Right.
His little girl being his daughter reincarnated.
Yeah.
Ah.
So it's,
Yeah,
it's
and,
daddy
Lindsay's-
staying in touch
Lindsay's
with the
father-
little girl.
Lindsay's father kind of had a suspicion if there was a spirit, it was probably Pete Couch, who, as a child, her father was acquainted with. But Pete liked his cigars. And when Lindsay was describing them, she described basically Pete Couch, and her father smoked at the time, and she was trying to come up with, well, he's smoking, but it's not like yours. It's a big thing. She was trying to describe a cigar, and that really registered with Joe because there were portions in the restaurant where you had the distinct aroma of cigar.
Right.
And even in current times, when we got into the station for a couple of pendulum sessions, and some of the people who are acquainted with a nightclub there remarked that there are some parts of the building they don't want to go into. And oddly, there are times when we just smell cigar smoke.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of lingering presence, if you will, that was it just made the whole investigation that much richer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I know. Love stuff like that.
Yeah, I do. Well, that leads us nicely into a break, I'd say.
Yes. Is that okay with you guys?
Yeah.
Cool.
Right.
So we'll do 5-minute break.
Yes.
There's a count. You lay the countdown at the end, so
That's the time to rush back to your chair.
time to start running back.
Time for another cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Right. So
Lubricate your throat.
Okay,
Right.
5 minutes.
5
5
minutes.
Yeah.
All right.
Right. I'm going to try it this way and then see if it works.
Right.
So just bear with me, everyone, please. Let's.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
And we are back. So I just have to unmute everyone.
Yes.
Here.
Hey.
Oh, I love
And
that.
I have.
Yeah, I
Is
knew
that
you'd be back.
citrine, George?
There
Dan.
you go.
Citrine.
The upside down Christmas tree.
Yeah.
Yes, I've got my.
That's
It worked.
that's the size I use
Well,
for map dowsing.
so,
Perfect. Oh, there you go.
so it's not that
Yeah.
big.
Yeah,
And opalite.
there you go.
Ooh.
Beautiful.
And
Don't be showing off now, Deb.
clear quartz.
Ah.
Oh, that's
We
nice.
get fancy here.
Two. I haven't made my own with a shoelace and a rock though. I need to do
Well,
that.
May not be pretty, but it works.
It does.
Yeah.
Well done.
I still need to do that.
Yeah.
You'll see me next week. I'll have a big line of them walking around with my shoes falling off my
like
feet.
fishing lures, you know.
Yeah.
Oh
So I
no!
tell people ask me, how do you choose the proper pendulum? Well, I say pick the pretty one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. It's just whatever catches your eye, isn't it? Really?
That's the same as crystals. It's what you're drawn to, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I have crystals, I have metal, I have wood, I have plastic, I have
Yeah.
copper.
Oh, copper's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what that is. I think the one I've got. Don't know. Put it there. Yeah, that's copper.
Yeah. Yeah, copper's good for dowsing.
Ooh. Well, I got. But when I bought that, I got. No, there is somewhere dowsing rods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd love to know where I put them.
Yeah, George and I had an interesting experience with dowsing rods in this case. We had dowsed one of our subjects had back in the 1880s had buried a box. We hoped it was a diary,
Yeah.
and we knew where the house was located. It's an empty lot now,
Right.
and we were working, as I said, with the administrator of the local museum, so he had permission to dig any place in town he wanted to, basically. So he said, "Well, let's go find it." So we doused the location, got the rods out. The house had been torn down. I don't know what 1900s.
No, the house was torn down. It looks like in the late 1940s, very early 50s.
Okay, late. It had been built in 1800s or late. Anyway, so it was down, and George and I went out there, had the shovels and everything, had the dowsing rods, went out, found the place with the cross. He said, "This is it. We're going to find the diary." Started digging down. We got down about a foot. and hit a concrete pad. Sometime between the time the house had been torn down and the time the lot had become an empty lot, someone had put a building there and put a concrete flooring in, so we couldn't get to the diary if it's down there at all.
Oh,
One of those frustrating things.
yeah.
You're at X where
Yeah.
X marks the spot, but you can't get to the spot.
Yeah.
You can see
Frustrating.
it, but that's
The
it.
diary is probably down about 2 feet. We just got a whole 6 inches of crushed concrete and asphalt. You need a backhoe to get into.
Yeah.
Damn.
How annoying is that?
Yeah.
You don't get hold of any dynamite.
One of those, what is it? Forgot what
Just
they're
to
called.
break the surface.
Witching stick.
Yeah.
The witching stick, yeah. Same thing as the pendulum. It's the same principle, just different tool.
Right.
Excellent.
Right. Should we jump onto the questions?
Yeah. You're in charge.
I don't know about that.
Well,
Yeah.
Right. Next one again is from Rick Allen, and he would like to know, how many different worlds do you guys believe are out there?
worlds or universes
Well, you
or
choose.
dimensions. I don't think it's possible to count.
Mm-mm.
I think they're
No,
uncounted universes, uncounted dimensions.
Yeah.
Which means uncountable worlds.
So many. Too
So
many.
yeah.
George, do you agree?
oh, absolutely, absolutely. In fact, in a conversation, one of the many conversations we had with E.T.,
Yeah.
there was one particular session out at this park I mentioned earlier where Dan was there and his friend Dave and his wife Lauren. Lauren's a medium. And we were having a session there conversing with E.T. And I had the thought, well, wait a minute, since Lauren is here, E.T., would it be possible for you to present yourself to Lauren in a manner that she can get some sort of impression of you? And E.T. said, okay. And what Lauren, first off, it just got very expansive, and she was using the word purple, but something very, very vast, if we will. It was just awesome. And Dan, you can pick it up here with what y'all were receiving.
Yeah. When George says ET, that's the name we were allowed to use to the entity. It's not, when we say ET, it's not the ET from the movies, or it's not a or anything like that. This is just a name. It's just a name for something unnameable.
Yeah.
But there was Dave, George, me, and Lauren sitting in kind of a semicircle. And Lauren and I were side by side.
Right.
And she was looking at this purple. And I looked over and I said, "Do you feel that?" And she said, "Yeah." And then I just kind of sat back because this wave of love just washed through me, literally. I mean, it was a physical sensation. Lauren later described it as mother love, but
Right.
it was just overwhelming. You can't believe it unless you were there. It was just it was that powerful and that immediate. It wasn't something we were emotionally worked up to, like if you go to a political speech or some time of Christian revival or something like that. It was instantaneous.
Yeah.
And it was a physical, emotional, spiritual sensation that just waved through both of us. It was incredible.
Mm-hmm.
So we were dealing, in this case, we were dealing not only with extraterrestrials and people, reincarnated spirits. We're also dealing with highly developed beings on an entirely different level from what we operate on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was George will tell you, I'm not known for being very emotional. And when Dan says, "Oh, I'm tearing up," there's something really there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, and it's kind of a check on this. In another session I had with Colleen, I asked E.T. if he would be present so that Colleen can have her impressions. And what Colleen was describing, and this is in the book, a very, very evolved spirit, to the point that the spirit goes where it wishes to go. Okay.
Yeah.
And has the ability to take on whatever form is appropriate for what it wishes to do or is doing. That could be a physical form. When we asked in another session if ET were to take on a form that physically we could experience, he described basically what people are describing as the Nordics, kind of a light skin, kind of tall, blonde hair, usually blue or green eyes, larger eyes than most humans. But so that would be the three-dimensional presentation if that was chosen. But what Colleen was really struck with was this is just such a highly evolved spirit and capable of just things we can't even imagine. And that was kind of giving us a broader perspective of these alien ET experiences. Maybe not all of them, but certainly many of them are on a whole different level than what we may be perceiving or concluding from what we're perceiving.
Yeah. So have they ever told you, or have you ever asked where they come, where they're from?
We never asked. We were following information in this
like direct
on Lindsay, so we didn't deliberately choose. Are you here from another planet or another solar system or star cluster? That would have taken us away from the focus of our investigation. And if we took that rabbit hole, we'd have found another one, and we would still be. We wouldn't have written the book.
Yeah.
No, I just wondered if it had come up in conversation.
What we're going to do in the current book that we're researching about the sky people, I am going to see if that type of questions are appropriate and if they're applicable.
Right.
If indeed they are in this particular solar system from another solar system for whatever reason that can be identified. We will ask those questions in this next book.
Right. Cool. Thank you.
Yes. Right. We've got another question from Rick.
I was going to say, is there only Rick in the chat tonight?
No, we have got some more questions coming in. But Rick was the first four that came in.
Hello, Rick.
So, has any group warned either of you about the intentions of another group?
I don't know what it means by group, but no.
That's to do with when you're both communicating with the different groups from the past, and you're coming up with the similar kind of answers.
I haven't. I don't think you have either, George. No one's warned me off.
No, again,
not when we're together.
Yeah, we're communicating with the dearly departed, or we're communicating with ET for a specific application or reason in Lindsay's life experiences, as opposed to who can we talk to? Did you know this? Do you know that? The focus is on the subject of the book, and not so much the origins or dispositions of these groups.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah. We don't deny it. We just haven't dealt with it.
Yeah. No, that's cool.
Yeah. Keep in mind, George and I are basically reporters on this. Explorers and reporters at the same time. But we're dependent on our sources, as any reporter is.
Yeah.
And we're combining our own research with the information we are getting from our sources. In this case, sources just happen to be people who have passed on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
or from out there.
Yeah.
George said something funny when we were discussing the book. It hit him. We were sitting in his living room. Said, "Dan, do you realize half our sources are dead?" Well, all right. We're reporters. We name our sources.
Yeah, true story.
Don't shy away from it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
No. Well, I
There
mean,
you go.
seriously,
It can be done.
they're as real as any other source.
Yeah.
They're
Mm.
probably more honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, you
Well,
know,
yeah.
certainly more honest than your average politician.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, come over here and find out. Think some of yours are bad. Jeez.
Yeah. Actually, come here.
We've got the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, we have. Yeah. You scraped it well and truly for us.
Yeah.
That's another conversation another day, but I bet I can top it.
Probably. Right. Another question. Never guess who it's from.
Our Rick again.
Hey, Rick.
He'd like to know, is there a federation of sorts that these different groups belong to?
I think
In my research,
this is my opinion. My opinion. I think there is a federation of different groups. I certainly wouldn't say all groups. I think there probably is some sort of federation, but I've got no evidence to back that up.
Right.
personally, we haven't explored that, but again, I do a huge amount of reading on this subject, and that does crop up over and over again as a reality. So,
Right.
I'm perfectly comfortable with that. In fact, frankly, much of the
I
Star
would
Trek,
be surprised if there wasn't.
yeah, much of the Star
Right.
Trek blueprint apparently was presented to the creator and the writers, if you will, from the other realm to get this information out, get it understood, have it prepared so that when we do get closer to making contact, so to speak, we'll have the language, we'll have the concepts, we'll be able to really communicate.
Yeah.
That's just my impression.
No, thank you.
No, makes
But
sense.
next question is from Josephine Weeks or Joanne Weeks. I don't know. But she wants to know, where do the Sky People come from?
Well, in
Wait
our
till
next
next
book,
year.
hopefully we'll be able to tell you.
Well, wait till next year. We are researching that even as we speak.
Oh, exciting.
No, what you should say, you'll have to buy the book.
Yes.
Yeah, we will be asking the question, and
Plug
we'll
that
see
book.
what the answers are.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
start with one, work your way all the way through. Then by the time you finish with number 3, we'll have number 4 ready to go.
Yeah.
But seriously, that's a question we're going to be looking into that. But right now, we just have to say out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Right.
Again, my speculation would be other worlds, other dimensions, other universes, all of the above.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
my speculation.
Cool.
Right.
Can't
Question from Charlie. This girl that disappeared, was she found?
I can't recognize the girl.
I think it was the
one that
girl.
was missing for 20 years. The
I
20-year case, I think.
Yes.
Unless when in many cases that I've worked, we still don't know. That was specific girl. I don't know. Can't tell you.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that's one of the hardest part about looking for missing persons is you can sometimes have the information and it does no good.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a shame. Oh, she was asking
No,
about
but
Lindsay.
sometimes it works. Sometimes it does work.
Yeah.
Give you an example. I was working a case. Again, interesting thing about the pendulum, it's not bounded by time or space. But I was working a case up in Colorado, and of a missing person. It was one of those cases where a small town, where a young man, 12 years old, had disappeared. Everybody in town knew who did it. It's one of those cases where everybody knows who did what, but there's no evidence. You can't prove it.
Yeah.
So me and several other psychics were working the case to try to find some evidence, and the evidence would be the body, of course.
Yeah.
So I doused 2 locations on a specific mountain outside this small town. I mean, way, back in the woods, up around 10,000 feet, and doused 2 locations, and actually went out and did helped out with part of the ground search on one occasion. Didn't find him that time, but they came back and did another search. And on one of my locations, they did find finger bones, I think a femur and some other bones that turned out to be the through DNA testing, they were the bones of the missing child.
Right.
So they were able to turn that over to the police and then pursue the case. The interesting thing is the other location I had pinpointed on the side of the mountain was where the police, I heard later, thought the murder had occurred.
Right.
Again, one of the really important things, this should be interesting to the audience about pendulum dowsing, is you can get really, really specific if you're looking for something. For example, the problem with a lot of psychics who are extremely accurate, they can come up with a beautiful description of where the missing person is. You know, for example, he's in a forest. There's a river nearby. There's a mountain on the side. To the west, there's a nice dirt road nearby. There's a cabin over here. Well, that describes 8 million places in America.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though it could be perfectly accurate. With pendulum dowsing, you can take out maps, topological maps, and Google Earth, and you can get right down to a latitude and a longitude.
Pinpoint.
Yeah.
You can go to this spot. That's how we found the bones of the missing kid.
Yeah.
The cops went
Right.
to the spot. They were within 300 feet of the point that I had located.
I mean, it's a sad outcome, but it's still closure, isn't it, either way?
Yeah. Well, one of the good things about the pendulum dowsing, even most of the cases I've been involved with were search and recovery rather than search and rescue. That's just about the nature of the thing. But at least you bring closure to the family. At least they know what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. Because it must be awful never knowing.
Yeah, never
one of
finding
the
out.
hardest things. Yeah, one of the hardest things, especially when I was going out with the search and recovery teams, was to walk back and look at some family member and go, didn't find him.
Yeah.
It must be awful, that.
Yeah. Horrible.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, do we have other questions?
Yes, got a few.
We have.
So
Well, she was
next
asking
one.
about Lindsay.
Yes.
And Lindsay never went missing.
Oh, right, okay.
She's very much here. There were some physical abductions where she was physically removed, but she was always returned.
Right.
Okay.
And
Okay.
Lindsay's recollections
there we
of
go.
these events are actual memories. Okay. She's never had any hypnosis regression, anything like that. She has hard, firm memories of some of these events. And there are a couple of events that they bubble up from time to time in her dreams.
Yeah.
And we did some pendulum work on some of her dreams. And yes, they were partial memories of actual events.
Right.
Right. Okay. Cheers. Right. Next question. I never guess who it's from. All right. Have Dan and George ever asked the entities if there is a creator, and if so, who?
I haven't. That's one
I
of the
haven't,
things
but
go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, because of the extensive reading I do on the topic, that question is often alluded to, and the gist of what I run into in volumes and volumes of reading of actual research in this subject is that there is a source energy.
Yeah.
That seems to be very well accepted. There is a source energy.
Yeah.
How it develops after that, well, it can go any million ways.
Yeah.
In all my paranormal books, I have purposefully stayed away from the religious aspect of it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I like George. Again, my personal opinion, obviously there's a creator, a source energy, but I avoid that in the books because once you get into religion, you're getting arguments about how many angels can dance on the head of the pin, and you're missing the whole point of the book.
Yeah.
So I try to avoid that area as much as possible, so you can focus on what's really important.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Next question then is from Ancient Ruby. Any plans to come to the UK, Dan and George?
Bring us
I've been there
over.
a couple of times. Been a while.
Send the tickets. Send the tickets.
Yeah.
You come on, Ruby. Get your
no
hand in.
immediate,
Yeah.
no
We
immediate
would
plans,
love
but
to.
definitely would enjoy Yeah, love to.
Yeah, I've been over there. I've been over there only once, but I would love to come back.
Whereabouts did you go?
Oh, I was stationed in London. I was there for the air show a decade or so ago.
Mm-hmm.
Loved it.
Cool.
So yeah.
In fact, my sister's married to a former RAF fellow.
Ooh,
Ah, right.
nice one.
Excellent. Thank you. Right. Next question from Joe Weeks. At least you didn't ask about dogmen.
Yeah. That makes a change.
Can you interact with pets that have passed?
My answer would be not. I haven't done that. I haven't heard of any indication where that has happened. We do get consistent answers that pets do cross over, and that when your time comes and you pass, Fido will be waiting for you.
Yeah.
That's been pretty consistent because I've asked that question a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, my daughter Jeannie recounted for me a very curious event many years ago. I think she was living with her mother on the East Coast, and I believe this is when she was either in college or anyway, she was away from the house for an extended time, and she had a kitten. I forget the name of the kitten, but had a nice little kitten. And while she was away, kitten got run over.
Oh.
But when Jeannie came back, the kitten was still there. She interacted with the kitten. And when her mother was noticing Jeannie interacting with the kitten, she asked Jeannie, "What are you doing?" "Well, I'm playing with Shadow," or whatever the cat's name was. And the cat's dead, Jeannie.
Yeah.
And then that's when the kitten kind of went away.
Oh.
And Lindsay had an instance years ago where a dog she had was very leery of going into a certain chair. And I forget the story of how it went, but one of the friends that Dan mentioned who are out in Arizona, one of them is Dwight. He's a pet psychic. Okay, he can communicate with pets. And Lindsay asked him to kind of do his thing and see if he can identify what's going on in the house. And he said, "Oh, well, you've got the spirit of your former cat that's still there, and you need to tell this cat it's time to go." And then Lindsay realized that she had told the cat when the cat died, "Well, you can still stay here."
Yeah.
And the cat did. Freaked out the dog. So she asked the cat, "Hey, can you leave?" And so the cat left and the dog was cool. So yeah, there's definitely some interplay.
Oh. Right, next question then is from Rick again. How do the guys think that they are able to all speak the English language? I don't think he means you two. I mean, it means whoever you're communicating with.
It depends on who they are, but I think when we're talking with the spirits, for example, Native Americans, or when we're talking with beings from outer space or from another dimension, I think they have the ability to communicate in our language. Period.
Yeah.
It's just part of. They speak what. It's like having a universal translator from Star Trek.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's just part of the process.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things we are learning from the Sky People research is that there's a lot of telepathic communication going on, and that may be the big answer right there.
Mm-hmm.
Consistently in my research, at least out here with the cliff dwellings, is that they communicated easily and readily, but it was mind to mind rather than voice to voice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Next one is from Chayla. Who do you think gives us our answers when using a pendulum?
I believe your subconscious is an interface with all the answers that are available in the universe.
Yep.
And the answers are out there, and you need to work with your subconscious to make contact.
Yeah.
And the pendulum is just a method to allow you to access your subconscious so that your subconscious can access the answers. I think it's pretty simple.
Yeah. Thank you.
In other words, in my speeches and presentations,
Sometimes,
the answer,
if we're
what you want to
communicating
know
with a
is
specific
knowable.
personality,
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it froze?
Hello?
Oh,
Anyway,
no,
yeah,
fine.
as I was saying, I think most of what you want to know is knowable if you're willing to put in the effort.
Yeah.
You know, I do a lot of presentations on political assassinations, which everybody thinks is top secret, and I tell people if you want to know, just dig into the information. It's all there. The same thing with pendulum dowsing or looking at the tarot cards or a crystal ball or accessing your dreams. It's just a matter of put in the labor, put in the time, put in the study, open your mind, and the answers are there.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Right, we have another question from Ricardo. He'd like to know, is there some sort of hierarchy among the alien types?
That's for you, George.
Again, we didn't specifically look into this as a topic. However, in the descriptions of what was involved with some of Lindsay's encounters, there would be two types of individuals described. Usually there would be a trio of, we'll say, Nordics, put them in three-dimensional presentations, and they were kind of the supervisors of what was happening with Lindsay's. Then you had your classic grays, they're there, doing much of the more menial type activities and labor. So there does seem to be some sort of relationship to hierarchy, but we didn't specifically, but it was present in some of these episodes with Lindsay.
Thank you. So, I was going to say, so with all this communicating, and I know I asked before, but with the communicating with the ETs and with the spirits, do you think there's a connection of the two, or do you think they're completely different?
No, obviously we haven't quite figured out the full picture, but obviously with the Kate Bateman example, she was manipulating us to tell the story, the Lindsay Higgins story. So there's an obvious connection right there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But did the one that you call ET, did they give you any inclination as to any contact? Not contact. Any? Oh, I forgot the word. Connection with everything that was happening.
Well, the ET definitely made a connection with me with that emotional wound, that emotional mother love feeling. So there's definitely a connection. I think a lot of it is above our pay grade. We're just not ready to understand.
Right.
Because being human beings, we have certain limits, and there's certain things we just can't comprehend. And I think part of what's going on now is there's an effort to raise our consciousness so that we can understand more of what reality really is.
Yeah.
Mm. It's all confusing, though, isn't it?
So, a question for you.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. What's the question?
I was going to say a question for you both. If you could douse anywhere in the world, where would it be and what for? Any situation at all.
Well, one, you can douse. I could douse anywhere in the world right here.
Yeah.
The reason we go to locations is one, we're history buffs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we want to go. Plus, you get a better feel for the environment of what was going on, what it was like if you're on location.
Yeah.
Also, I think in terms of spirit communication, I think they appreciate the effort,
Yeah.
that you're showing up. But if I could
Mhm.
douse any place, it would have to be Egypt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Luxor, probably.
Mhm.
Yeah. Good answer.
Yeah.
What about you, George?
Mhm. One of the members of our team um, had a marvelous experience some time ago when she finagled a private tour of the Great Pyramid, able to the sarcophagus in the King's Chamber, where she had a remarkable experience. She can't really describe it, but something very profound happened there in a very good way for her. And I think that would be a wonderful place to carry the pendulum.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I can tell you a place we will be. In fact, George will be, and I will be working on this together. We had a real interesting experience the last time I was visiting George in Shreveport. George and I have a healer who lives in South Shreveport, and we went for a session out in at her location. That's a beautiful view of a kind of a wooded area. It's semi-rural, but there's a little creek bed, and there's a long yard, and then there's a wooded area leading up a hill. And I was sitting there, and I was looking at this empty wooded area, but there's empty. And I said, George, there are people out there. I know there are people out there. And of course, there's you can see nobody. And our healer said, "Well, Dan, that's your tribe. That's your clan. That's your."
Yeah.
So what? Through the a lengthy amount of time, she said we discovered that 4,000 years ago, I was a shaman at that specific spot, and those people were the spirits of those people were on that hill because they knew I was coming to see my healer, and they were all waiting to see me again.
Yeah.
Right.
And so at one point I said, George, I got to go down there. I just have to go down there. George is going, okay, there goes Dan again. So I walked down the hill into the woods, and I'm hit again with a wall of emotion. It was welcome home.
Yeah.
It was welcome home. And I stayed there. I don't know for how long. And how did you describe your field of dreams moment, George?
From my viewpoint, if you're familiar with the Kevin Costner movie, A Field of Dreams, it involves him building a baseball field, and a lot of the spirits of great baseball players come there and they continue to play ball. But when they finish, they walk into the outfield, which is lined by rows of corn, and they just walk into the corn and kind of vanish.
Yeah.
And as Dan was walking into the woods, I was having a little premonition. Oh, Dan, I'm going to have trouble telling you, Mary, about this if you don't come out.
Never to be seen again.
But the bottom line, apparently, I had a past life 4,000 years ago in that location, so I'm going to be investigating that, and I'm going to ask George to help me out with it. Probably some other members of our team also.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah.
I like that.
I've got a question. So when you've been doing the dowsing, what's the... I'm trying to think of the correct term. What's the strangest outcome you've had, the most unexpected outcome?
I can tell you, I don't know, unexpected. I can tell you the most emotional thing that just ever happened to me.
Yeah.
True story, and it's documented. With my friends, Dwight and Rhonda, who usually run a fundraiser for wounded warriors down in Tombstone, Arizona.
Yeah.
And I was down there as a volunteer lecturer, tour guide, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And, people come in, you pay your money, you get 3 days of psychic experiences, and the money goes to wounded warriors.
Yeah.
Right.
So, as part of not only a speaker and tour guide, but also grunt labor, the three of us were exhausted. The last day of the evening was like a Sunday evening, and we went to a location that was a building. It was built in the 1970s, but it was built on the location of a general store back in the 1880s in the Chinatown part of Tombstone. So it's a new building on a historic location.
Yeah.
The old building was like a general store, a bordello, opium den, that sort of thing.
Right.
And we were, the three of us were exhausted. And so we had our friend Brian Cano, who was our guest star of the evening, the weekend. And he was going to just kind of run the show from there on. And the idea was to let everybody experience psychic experiences that they had seen all weekend long. They could, practice it yourself. And so we had the place set up. It was kind of like an old saloon, and we had empty bottles of whiskey and empty shot glasses and cards and chips and everything. People were playing like they were playing gambling or belling up to the bar.
Yeah. And
just trying the different techniques to see if something would happen. And the three of us were just over in the corner. I was just doing this number. Just tired.
Yeah.
And one of the women who had bought bought a pendulum that day and had attended my seminar. It was the first day as a dowser. Started getting some kind of reading, and Brian, says, he calls Dwight over. Said, "There's something going on here." So he goes over and said, "Yeah, Dwight's a medium. Yeah, there's somebody here." He calls Rhonda over. She's a really good medium. She said, "Yeah, there's somebody here really in a bad position. Get Dan over here." So Dan wakes up and comes over. And I didn't have a pendulum, so I borrowed a necklace from some woman, and we started doing a session. And during the session, it turned out that the spirit that had shown up was a Chinese man who in the 1880s had committed murder on that spot, in that location.
Ooh.
He was afraid to cross over. He thought, the terrible retribution that was going to happen to him on the other side. So he was earthbound.
Yeah.
Earthbound because of his own belief system, not because he was cursed or anything, just his belief system. Did some research. I'm doing the pendulum thing. And there's another spirit that came over. And it was the spirit of the murdered man. The murdered man was the guy's brother. He had obviously crossed over 100 years ago. So he had come back to tell his brother, all is forgiven. It's okay. Why don't you come on over? You can cross over. It's okay. Nothing bad's going to happen to you. So in one instant, you had two mediums, a pendulum dowser, and a spirit trying to convince another spirit to cross over.
Yeah.
And when that happened, this was recorded. There was a documentary company out of New York that just happened to be in Tombstone that weekend, and they started following us around. So this is recorded.
Yeah.
But we're doing the session. We finally tell the spirit it's okay to cross over. And I don't remember this, but they tell me that my pendulum just started doing a circle. And then it dropped out of my hand. And when the pendulum drops out of my hand, that's a signal to me that the spirit is gone.
Yeah.
Right.
And I said, he's gone. He's crossed over. And at that moment, again, a wave of emotion. There were like 25, 30 people watching, and you could see the wave go through the audience watching this. People started bawling. People started sniffing. People started wiping their eyes. Even Brian Cano, who says he's a skeptic, his sinuses started acting up all of a sudden.
Oh, yeah.
Bit of hay fever.
The hay fever just kicked in just like that. It was so incredibly powerful. The crossing over. It was an emotion that one you can't fake it, and you certainly can't fake it with 25 or 30 people.
No.
But it was so powerful. I couldn't talk about it for 3 days.
Yeah.
I was going to try to explain it to my wife, and every time I would start to explain it, I'd start bawling. It was that emotional.
That's
So
amazing.
that's the most powerful thing that's ever happened to me.
Yeah.
Right. I think we have got another question.
Yes.
From Ancient Ruby to Dan. Have you ever doused at the original Four Corners? Not where it is now, but originally.
At the original location, yeah. I didn't get anything particularly interested, but yeah, I went to Four Corners and then I hiked over to the original location.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the Four Corners location in the American Southwest is currently located because it's a good place for the tourist. but the
Right.
actual Four Corners is a little bit away.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm surprised you didn't pick anything up though.
Yeah, sometimes the magic works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
It could be that I was very tired that day.
Yeah.
I was coming back from a long trip where I had long camping trip. I hadn't slept any for 36, 48 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I suppose that'll affect dowsing, won't it?
Well, yeah, anything. Yeah, pendulum dowsing is like anything. You guys go to work. If you have a sore throat, you're not going to be as good as you normally are. If you had a
No.
fight with a spouse or engaged in road rage, you're upset. You're not going to be as engaged.
Yeah.
No.
If you're taking cold medication, you're not going to be as engaged as you are. This
Yes.
dowsing is exactly the same way.
Yeah. I was going to ask, have you ever been doing the dowsing and just got nothing? Got absolutely nothing.
Probably, but I can't remember a time when I have.
Right.
Probably, I would say probably, but
Yeah.
generally I get something. Sometimes the answer is, like they say, God answers all prayers. Sometimes the answer is no.
Yeah.
So sometimes I've got, this is not an area you need to explore. I've got no kind of thing.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Now I try to always ask, is what I'm doing in the best interest of the person involved? And every once in a while you get like when you're looking for a missing person, sometimes it's not in that missing person's best interest to be found.
Yeah.
So I've gotten involved in some cases and then backed out.
Right.
Yeah, because I suppose I hadn't thought about that. I suppose that's somebody goes missing. There's always that possibility that they've actually gone missing on purpose. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, because you want to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, there was one case I was looking for a missing little girl, and I was, I had my maps out, and I was zeroing in on the location,
Yeah.
and I don't know, I was in South Texas or Northeast Texas, someplace in Texas, and just the back of my head said stop, 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 and I worked my pendulum, and it turned out it was not in the best interest of this little girl to be found.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
So I stopped. I filed my report and said, I'm not pursuing this case anymore. I'm bowing out.
Yeah.
Turns out later, the people looking for the missing little girl were more concerned about some insurance that she was about to inherit than her well-being.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But George, you with the dowsing, you do dowsing as well, don't you? You said.
Yeah, George is a good dowser.
Yeah. Have you had any of it negative or got nothing from it?
The only time I use the pendulum is when there's something specific I wish to know. Again,
Right.
it's not a general, okay, anybody there? No. And kind of curious.
Yeah.
Back to my little morning walks at the park. The last couple of years, I've gotten into the pattern of whenever I do go to the park, I go to that original spot and reframe that first photograph that got all this going and continue taking a picture. And things still continue showing up. Sometimes an orb, sometimes Kate will show up in her blue sparkly orb. It's really pretty to look at in a picture. But for a couple of years now, and it'll happen on a cloudy day or a sunny day, it really doesn't matter, but I'll take the picture, could be in the morning, could be in the afternoon, but it's always that spot, that location. And I started picking up things in the sky.
Right.
And transfer the iPhone picture to the computer so I can do some enlargements. And whoa, that's not a bird. Get the pendulum. Is this dark object in the sky in this photograph? Is this a bird? No.
Yeah.
Is this some debris held aloft by the wind? No. Is this what Dan and I would call a UFO? Yes. And that has happened enough times to where Dan and I have gone to that location and as part of the session, exploring whether there is a portal in that general area that is where these vehicles or whatever they are coming from. And we have pretty strong information that, yes, indeed, there is a portal there, and that these, I'll say objects, that some are physical, some may not be totally physical, but they are captured on the camera. I don't see them. And we've got all shapes, all sizes. It's just part of the story. Not sure how it's going to fit in. But we did learn that Lindsay and the property where she grew up on after the restaurant experience was in kind of out in the country, so to speak, south of Shreveport. But the land itself is very ancient, high ground. There's a freshwater spring there on the property. It's been flowing for 100,000 years. I mean, it's was occupied by Native Americans for a long, long time. And part of what Lindsay was seeing when she would look out through her bedroom window or whatnot, individual shadow people, objects, and we have repeatedly gone out there and questioned with or communicated with different individuals specifically about, is there a portal here? Yes. And we've always gotten affirmative, yes, there is a portal there. It's a fixed portal. We even got information that the portal existed before the earth was formed. Not sure how to wrap my head around that one. But that does explain a lot of what Lindsay was perceiving was indeed items, perhaps individuals, crossing through the portal into this particular dimension. And that's something that, again, the pendulum is a portal present? Yes. Is it active? Yes. And sometimes I'll send a picture out to Dan and he will have a line of questioning with his pendulum, and will often ask questions I didn't think to ask, like, did this object come through the portal? Yes. So that's kind of the curiousness of the pendulum on my end right now. Is, we're things in the sky.
Right. So has there ever been a time where you've both been doing the pendulum and not knowing that the other one's been doing it, you've ended up getting like the same response?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
Really?
All the time. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, George,
a good example was
George will get some of his photographs and he'll do his pendulum work. He won't tell me. He'll just send me the photograph.
Yeah.
Dan, is there something in here? He won't say whether or not he's seen something or discovered something. So I'll put it on my computer. I'll do the pendulum. Is there something here for me to research? Yes. Then I start doing my pendulum thing. So that happens all the time.
Wow. So do you think there's some sort of synchronicity with the two of you then?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. What I was going to get at was a couple of years ago when Dan again was in the town doing the early research for his first pendulum book. We were at the oldest cemetery in Shreveport just because it's a historic place. Sure, let's go to Oakland Cemetery. And Dan was using the pendulum to converse with some of the individuals who were whose remains were at the cemetery, and they agreed to come down and chat with him. But I noticed that he would ask the question, and I would get an answer before the pendulum started moving.
Right.
And after 4 or 5 of the conversations, I started to realize, okay, wait a minute. I'm picking up the answer before it's being processed into the pendulum movement.
Yeah.
And I thought that was most interesting. So, you can get the information. Yeah. The pendulum is just a focal point to shut up the conscious to allow the subconscious to receive the information.
Yeah. So you was supposed being used as a tool for the communicating then?
Yeah, it's a very effective tool.
Fascinating.
Yeah. In my early books, I refer to myself. I came to this this area of research pretty late in life. I refer to myself as a psychic on training wheels. So it's all fairly new stuff to me.
So does none of this freak either of you out? The way it's all working between the two of you?
No, are you kidding? No, this is the one. It's the most fun in the world, but it's also the most fascinating. We're dealing with the primary concepts of the universe on a daily basis. We're exploring. Talk about going where no man has gone before. I mean, that's our playground.
Yeah.
That's the word, exploration.
Yeah.
In fact,
you know,
our leading evidential medium, Colleen, is really enjoying being a part of this process because it is exploration, and it's just a matter of being open to information. Whereas the evidential work, you're still dealing with personalities on one side and people on the other, and so there's a lot of, it's messy at times. And this kind of mediumship work, she really likes. She doesn't have to work at it. She just go for the adventure of it. So exploration. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, we're leaping off. For a lot of people, are investigating. Is there life after death? Well, that's our starting point.
Yeah.
We're not trying to prove this, life after death. We're trying to figure out what it's like.
Yeah. Well, like you said earlier, you've got more contacts on the other side than you have this side, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, we've got a good team. We've got a good team working with us.
So
I don't know if we're working with them or they're working with us. Really,
half an hour.
It's a good group. It's a real good group.
Well, we're attracting a couple of new spirits into this current research, or whatever we're doing. It's being enjoyed.
Yeah,
it's when they ask for a contract, that's when you want to worry.
Yeah. Don't sign anything.
Been down that road before. Nope.
No.
Right, we've got one last question from Rick again. And what are the guys' thoughts on the shadow people?
There's something to it. I've seen them. Other than that, I don't have much of an opinion. I'm not afraid of them.
No.
Yeah. Back in when I was assistant state director of MUFON for Louisiana, there was one case in particular of a woman who would frequently, she lived in a rural area, and when she would often be outside and would see there's always three kind of shadowy characters, and she would run back in the house and close the door, and they would come up to the door. They wouldn't go through the door or come in the door, but they would come up to the door. And curious, Lindsay also described on a number of occasions seeing her shadow people on the property. Again, they neither one could describe what they looked like, because either they could not see their face or they would not look at the face. So that was an interesting commonality that I noted regarding shadow people. Yeah. But that's about all I asked about it.
Right. Thank you. I think that is going to wrap it up.
It is.
Well, it's been fun.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for coming on. It's been brilliant.
Yeah, sorry if I repeated a couple of questions. I'm just trying to get my head around the whole pendulum thing.
Well, welcome to the club.
I just want to get a proper understanding of it. And obviously, I'm going to get the books that you guys have done, because I've recently, the last 3-4 months, that I've got into the pendulum and trying it out. And I've had some good stuff. But when I asked about, have you had anything where you've not got a response? Because that's happened to me a couple of times. I'm just sat there, I'm like, nothing's happening. And I'm guessing
it could be the nature of the way you ask the question.
Possibly.
But
it's like, then I'm thinking, well, if it is a spirit guide or my spirit guide, maybe they're busy doing something somewhere else. They're not always going to be.
You may be focusing on a spirit guide when you just should be just keeping your mind wide open to whatever is out there.
Yeah. I think I reckon that's what I was doing, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, you may be trying to talk to someone who's not there.
Yeah, I do that all the time. I'm good at that.
Yeah, I get a lot of stares too.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking to dead people. Good.
Even they don't want to reply.
Aliens. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Okay then.
Yeah. We'll be
okay,
seeing
we'll leave you to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to try a different approach. I'll let you guys know if I get anything from it, hopefully.
I'll send you a copy of my book.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no.
Well, it's my birthday next month, so I was gonna make a little list for the other half.
I'll send you one, and then you can purchase the other.
Yeah, definitely. Cheers. Thank you.
Right.
Right. So we are done.
Yes.
So massive thank you for you both coming on.
Yes, thank
Enjoyed
you.
it.
But
Yeah,
I feel
fun.
me and Deb are left out. We haven't got the hats.
No. Oh,
You know what I'm doing this weekend?
Sorry, Bob. There you go.
Deb, all right, there.
There you go.
Not quite the same, but
you've got to have a woolly hat here.
I've got one that I got. Oh, here it is.
I knitted this one. That's my hat. I
No.
knitted it.
I bought this in Boston, Massachusetts,
Oh, there you go. That's nice and warm.
and then I wore it around New York and got a few obscenities from yellow cab drivers.
Super.
When I wore this in New York, and the construction guys went nuts.
Yeah,
They kept yelling, hey, Tex, trade you a New York hard hat. Trade you a hard hat. No way.
yeah, yeah. I didn't realize that there's a big difference with Boston and New York.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, I found out wearing a
Yeah.
Boston hat,
Real quick.
walking
Yeah.
around Columbus Circle even. Yeah, so it soon came off. Oh, sorry, someone just asked what did it say? Yeah, Boston.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
I actually bought it from Boston Market. If that, or a market in Boston, that's all I know.
Well, I got this down in Tombstone, so it's
Oh, yeah. Authentic.
Yeah,
authentic.
the real deal.
Yeah.
George, any story on your hat?
Just in Bass Pro Shop one day several years ago, and that's a good looking hat. I wonder if it fits. It did, so I walked out with it.
And never took it off since.
Yeah.
Close.
Deb?
I knitted that one.
Oh.
Good.
Well, did you really?
Yeah, I'm knitting a scarf now.
Wow.
And then you need gloves with a string going through.
Yeah, idiot mittens.
You don't lose them. Oh, right. So that's it. We
Yes.
are done.
Thank you.
So massive
Right.
thank you again
Thank
for
you
you
guys.
both
Thoroughly
coming on.
enjoyed it. That was great.
Definitely come back on once you've finished writing the third book.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
give us some more detail on anything that you come up with.
Yeah,
So
we'll
we can
keep
get
you in-
past
keep you in the loop. We'll keep
move
you in the loop.
past the so far and get to conclusion or result, something like that.
Okay.
Yep,
Yes.
perfect.
Got it.
So
You
definitely
guys.
keep in touch.
Yes.
And Deb, what is it next week?
Next week is the Christmas special with George and
you-
Earl.
Oh,
We've lost him.
um,
George has
well.
gone.
he's having
Well,
a
George,
so we've got George and Earl Christmas special 23rd.
Yes.
That should be a good one.
Yep.
If George remembers what day it's going to be. So George is in New South Wales in Australia, and it's like, is it 11 hours difference or something?
wow.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so we've got to get the.
Yeah, will this program be archived?
Yes, I can send you a copy if you want.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah,
We'll
definitely.
promote it on. I'll promote it on my website and my blog and all that. Facebook.
Cool. Yeah, I'll send you the link.
Brilliant.
So,
Thank
yeah,
you.
send me the link. As soon as that
Yeah.
comes in, I'll promote the hell out of it.
Excellent.
Lovely.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, 'cause
Right.
This would be fun.
Yes. So, sorry. Before we have one on Wednesday, we have Terry Lynch Keel coming back on
Yes.
the 21st because when she came on a couple of weeks ago, her internet went down and
Yeah, it did.
it didn't get sorted out for like 6 days. So she had no internet whatsoever, and she's down in Tennessee, I think she said. Yeah,
somewhere
so
like that.
she couldn't contact anybody. She had no internet, nothing.
Yeah.
So she's going to come back on That's on the 21st. Then Christmas special on the 23rd. And then nothing till the 6th of January. We've got Preston Dennett and Dolly Saffron.
Yes.
So that is that. We will see you all next Wednesday. Have a great weekend, everyone. Don't weekend too much. And that's it. So thank you, everyone, and see you soon.
See you later. Thank
Bye.
you. Good night.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody.